In today's show, how one key Senate deal could finally bring the shutdown to an end, what President Trump is offering air traffic controllers to get them back on the job, and what's driving the price of beef sky high, and which everyday costs are quietly getting cheaper. Plus, generational change hits Washington. A new study finds that listening to music could cut dementia risk, and an 85-year-old Queens homeowner is under fire. Here's the trivia question that may or may not stump you. What's the only country in the world named after a woman? It's Tuesday, November 11th. This is the Flyover Podcast. Welcome to the Flyover Podcast, taking you above the noise for an unbiased, high-altitude view of today's headlines with daily coverage that's honest and refreshing. Let's cruise the news and land the facts. Hello and welcome back to the Flyover Podcast. I'm Ayla Brown. Today we take a moment to honor the men and women who've served our country with courage and sacrifice. In the show notes, I've linked a powerful story that really captures that spirit. It's about 20-year-old Preston Sharp, who started placing flags on veterans' graves when he was just 10 years old. And 10 years later, his Flags and Flowers mission has become a global movement with over 1 million tributes placed and counting. Thanks to Amy Hess for featuring his story in last Friday's Feel Good Flyover. Let's take off with today's headlines, and to all of our veterans listening, thank you for your service. House Speaker Mike Johnson has called all members back to Washington, D.C. for a vote on the Senate's deal to end the 41-day government shutdown, the longest in U.S. history. The Senate advanced the plan Sunday night with a 60-40 vote as 8 Democrats broke ranks to join Republicans. But final passage was delayed Monday when Senator Rand Paul objected to hemp-related language that's important to Kentucky growers. Johnson says the House will vote within 36 hours of Senate approval, while the upper chamber prepares for up to 7 votes starting Monday evening. Many Democrats voiced outrage over the 8 members who voted to reopen the government without securing the health care subsidy extensions their party had been demanding. And that frustration is already fueling new calls to replace Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. The senators who voted yes, none of whom are up for re-election in 2026, defended their decision, saying the toll of the shutdown had simply grown too severe. President Trump has said he'll sign the measure once it clears Congress. Meanwhile, President Trump is also demanding that air traffic controllers, quote, get back to work now. That's according to a post he made on Truth Social, where he threatened to dock their pay, but also offered a $10,000 bonus for those who stayed on the job. His post came as the shutdown continued to hammer air travel, with more than 2,000 flight cancellations and over 7,000 delays reported on Monday. Even though the shutdown looks close to ending, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy warned that the situation is still critical. He said many air traffic controllers who make about $140,000 a year could handle missing 1 paycheck, but not 2, which led to the staffing crisis. To keep flights safe, the Federal Aviation Administration ordered airlines to cut domestic flights, though it's still unclear when that order will be lifted. And a new chart breaking down U.S. inflation rates by category shows that while overall inflation is running about 3% year over year, beef and veal prices have jumped the most, up nearly 15% since 2023. The data, compiled from monthly inflation reports by USA Facts, shows car maintenance up 7.7%, home insurance up 7.5%, sugar and sweets up 6.7%, and electricity up 6.4%. Some prices are rising slower than average. Fresh vegetables are up just about 2.8%, seafood 2.1%, and jewelry and watches 2%. You can see the full breakdown in today's show notes. Here are your top political headlines. In Washington, the Trump administration told the Supreme Court it still wants to block a Rhode Island judge's order that requires the government to pay full SNAP benefits for November. Officials also warned states not to issue the payments on their own while the matter is still being decided. Meanwhile, President Trump issued what he called, quote, full complete and unconditional pardons to dozens of allies tied to the 2020 election fight, including Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, and Sidney Powell. The move is already stirring debate in legal and political circles. The Supreme Court also agreed to take up a key voting case, deciding whether states can count mail-in ballots received after polls close, as long as they were sent by Election Day. Justices plan to rule before next year's midterms. And in another decision, the court declined to revisit same-sex marriage. Justices rejected an appeal from former Kentucky County Clerk Kim Davis, who gained national attention in 2015 for refusing to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Here's some podcast extra stories. Another long-serving Democrat is stepping away from Congress. 80-year-old New Jersey Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman says she won't seek re-election in 2026, marking yet another generational shift in the Democratic Party. Coleman, who served since 2015, joins Nancy Pelosi and several other senior Democrats who've recently announced their retirements. The party's next chapter could look a lot younger and a lot different heading into next election cycle. Meanwhile, a new study is giving us another reason to turn up the music. Researchers in Australia found that older adults who regularly listen to music were nearly 40% less likely to develop dementia over time. The study tracked more than 10,000 people over 3 years and found that music lovers not only lowered their risk of cognitive decline, but also scored better on memory and focus tests. So yes, those playlists might actually be good for your brain. And in Queens, New York, one man took improving the view a little too literally. An 85-year-old homeowner was caught cutting down a dozen city-owned trees near his waterfront property, claiming he was clearing bamboo that threatened his foundation. He later admitted his scenic view may have been a second reason. The city and environmental activists aren't buying it, though. There's more still ahead. U.S. household debt just hit a record high. Plus, the Giants make a major coaching change. And scientists say humans might have what they're calling a seventh sense. I'll explain more in just a couple of minutes. But thanks to our sponsor first, Cozy Earth. You know that feeling when the day finally slows down and the kids are in bed and the lights are low and you can just finally breathe? That's my favorite part of the day, my 5 to 9. And lately I've been spending it wrapped up in my Cozy Earth cuddle blanket, wearing their ridiculously soft bamboo viscose pajamas. I am not kidding. They are the comfiest things I own, and my husband loves them on me as well. The pajamas are lightweight and breathable, so you stay cozy without overheating. And that bubble cuddle blanket that I was just telling you about, it is soft, it is stylish, and it's kind of like just the right weight. It's perfect for movie nights with the family or curling up by the fire. Honestly, it just feels like a nice big hug. So if you're shopping for the holidays, this is one of those gifts that actually gets used year-round. Plus, every purchase comes with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. So there's zero risk, only comfort. And right now, Cozy Earth's Black Friday sale is happening early. You can stack my code FLYOVER on top of their site-wide deals for up to 40% off. Don't wait. Start your holiday shopping today and wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. In finance, a new report from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York shows total U.S. household debt has hit a record high, climbing to $18.59 trillion in the third quarter of 2025. That includes everything from mortgages and car loans to credit card balances, which continue to rise as families deal with higher prices and those interest rates. Wendy's is set to close hundreds of its U.S. restaurants over the next few months as part of a major restructuring effort. The company says the closures will start in the fourth quarter of this year as it looks to reverse falling profits and focus on its top-performing locations. And after 2 decades of legal battles, Visa and MasterCard have reached a new settlement with U.S. merchants over so-called swipe fees, the charges stores pay to accept credit card payments. The deal is expected to bring some long-awaited clarity to retailers and could eventually impact how much customers pay at checkout. Here's how the stocks did yesterday. The Nasdaq jumped 2.27%, the S&P 500 rose 1.54%, and the Dow Jones gained 0.81%. Bitcoin ticked up 0.87%, while gold surged 3% to over $4,100 an ounce. The big mover of the day was Cogent Biosciences, which skyrocketed 119% after the company announced strong clinical trial results for a new cancer treatment that could be submitted to the FDA by the end of next year. In sports, the New York Giants have parted ways with head coach Brian Daboll after a rough 2-8 start to the season. Daboll leaves the team with a record of 20 wins, 40 losses, and 1 tie over 3.5 seasons. The move comes as the Giants look to reset for the second half of the year. In college basketball, there's a shakeup at the top of the AP poll. The Houston Cougars have taken over the number 1 spot, bumping Purdue down after their loss over the weekend. Arizona made the biggest leap, climbing 8 spots to number 5, while St. John's slid the other direction, dropping 8 places to number 13. See the full listings in the show notes. And basketball is remembering one of its all-time greats. Lenny Wilkens, the first person ever inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame as both a player and a coach, has died at the age of 88. Wilkens still holds the NBA record for most games coached with an incredible 24-87 over his career. In science and tech, scientists say humans might actually have a 7th sense, something they're calling remote touch. It's the ability to detect objects buried beneath materials like sand without ever touching them. It's kind of freaky, don't you think? But in experiments, people were able to find hidden cubes under sand with surprising accuracy, suggesting our sense of touch may extend farther than we think. You should try that at home and let me know if it works. Next, Time magazine is diving into artificial intelligence in a big way. The 102-year-old publication just launched its own AI agent that can answer questions, summarize text, and even generate audio clips, all using Time's massive archive. The tool, built in partnership with Scale AI, debuts with content focused on politics and entertainment and is available in 13 languages. And the European Space Agency is taking space food to a whole new level. Astronauts will soon test a new product called Soline, a protein made from microbes, air, electricity, and even a compound found in urine aboard the International Space Station. The goal is to create a sustainable, nutrient-rich food source for future long-term missions to the Moon and Mars. Here are a few more stories to wrap up your day. The Mega Millions jackpot has scored to an estimated $900 million ahead of tonight's drawing. The lucky winner could choose to take home a lump sum cash prize of about $415 million right away, making this one of the biggest jackpots of the year. We have a poll question about that in just a minute. OpenAI is honoring veterans this month with a special offer, a free 1-year subscription to ChatGPT Plus, normally a $20 a month service. The deal is available to U.S. veterans and service members within a year of separating or retiring, helping them navigate the transition to civilian life with access to AI tools for things like job searches, resumes, and learning new skills. Across the pond, a family in London is offering over $230,000 a year for a live-in tutor to begin grooming their 1-year-old son to become a, quote, proper English gentleman. The tutor would design a developmental curriculum focused on manners, culture, and early academics after the family said they noticed bias coming from their older child. And Disney fans, get ready to set sail. The Disney Destiny, the company's 7th cruise ship, launches later this month from Fort Lauderdale. The ship will feature 4- and 5-night voyages themed around Disney heroes and villains, complete with immersive experiences and character performances at sea. All right, you've made it to the poll section, so here's the results from yesterday. Are Target employees friendly where you live? 49% said neutral, 23% said very friendly, 19% said kinda rude, and 9% said they're only now smiling. Thank you to everyone who voted. Many people on our YouTube page said that they don't shop at Target. Here's the poll question for today. Are you buying a lottery ticket for today's $900 million Mega Millions drawing? Here's the ways you can vote. Yes, no, or maybe. I am not. I have actually never purchased a lottery ticket. I already know I'm not going to win. So, what's the point of starting an addiction like that? I kind of have an addictive personality. But anyways, you can vote below in the show notes and I will read the answers in tomorrow's show. And maybe one of our listeners will win the millions. All right, the trivia question. What's the only country in the world named after a woman? The answer, St. Lucia. The Caribbean island was named by French settlers after St. Lucy of Syracuse, a 3rd century Christian martyr, making it the only sovereign nation in the world named after a woman. Well, everybody, that is going to be it for today's episode of the Flyover Podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in and catching up with me on the news. If you are a veteran today, there are many deals that I hope you'll take advantage of. I've linked a list of 40 companies that are celebrating you today. Also, don't forget to check out jointheflyover.com for more coverage and your state's edition of the newsletter. I will see you back here tomorrow. Thanks, as always, for flying with us.